Welcome back to E3 2016 coverage from Final Encountercast. We just wrapped up the Sony panel. Much anticipated, this Sony panel. And guys, man, did Sony ever deliver on the stage tonight? Wow. This was so impressive. We've got a lot to talk about. I think the difference in Sony's presentation between all of the other presentations that we've seen today is that everything that Sony showed off was hypeable. Like it's not something, man. Not something, not all of them are IPs that I'm totally into or all about. But the presentation of everything in here, the first one that I want to talk about, Resident Evil 7.
Oh my God.
This one blew the back of my mind.
Nobody saw that coming.
I have never been into the Resident Evil series ever since the very first. It's never been one that I've ever really gotten into. And I got to tell you that I was so impressed walking out of that trailer. I may pick this up, not just because it's a VR experience, but genuinely, I am so impressed by this.
What blew me away and what was so...
Do any of you have anything to say to Resident Evil after the bashing that you did to them on our show these weeks past?
Oh, like you're exempt from that. Like you didn't bash them.
But I had no dog in it because I've never played the Resident Evils.
But what was so brilliant about this was that they waited until the end to show either Capcom or Resident Evil. They let the whole trailer play out and let the game speak for itself first.
It was such a shock when the title
they didn't even show any zombies.
Exactly.
Right. Like they showed literally like nothing.
How many times did we playfully in the chat go, oh, let's guess this game? And I mean, there were a couple of them that were really surprises. Days Gone was one like that. Everyone was like, oh, it's The Last of Us 2. Resident Evil was one that, dude, nobody nailed that. That was such a surprise when they said that it's a Resident Evil game.
And it wasn't for lack of trying. People were like, oh, it's a new Silent Hill game, or oh, it's a new Outlast game, or something like that. And then they dropped unbelievable.
It's amazing. The hype for Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Biohazard, going to be out on January 24th and will be a VR experience. Man, oh
my God.
VR has not shown up to the show except for the Sony showing. Is Sony...
Sony sold me on VR, hands down. Yeah. I want a VR. I need a PlayStation VR, period.
I cannot wait for PSVR.
And the surprising thing is how much we've heard that it's an underpowered piece of hardware. And this is exactly, you know what, when people were sitting around and quoting specs to me and comparing the PlayStation VR up against the Oculus Rift and up against the Vive, what did I say? The thing that was going to be important, the thing that was going to drive the success or failure of VR, and specifically Sony's VR, was going to be the titles, was going to be the games that they rolled out for it. And Sony showed up with the fucking VR games. Nobody else did. No, not one other company did.
Nope.
This has been
not even close.
This has been such a dream come true. Like I remember being like a little kid at like 8 years old, and I bought this little like VR headset thing that like had attachments that went onto your hands, expecting it to be something cool, and of course it was utter garbage. But like here we are in 2016, and that dream is coming true. It's right there.
It's never been more close than it is now.
Oh my God! October. It's coming in October. I cannot believe it.
And everything is in October.
and let me just say, can I just say, like, Sony put a reasonable price point on this. I mean, when you look at all of the combined costs to be able to get an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift, you're talking about not just upgrading your, not just buying the hardware in the first place, but also upgrading your hardware to have a video card that's able to render in that resolution. I really think that Sony has brought something special to the table here with Sony VR, and I cannot wait to get my hands on on this, and at a reasonable price point, it's going to happen.
I mean, you talk about the even if you don't own the PS4, you're talking about $800 as your investment for VR. Like, that is
to get off the ground.
Cheap.
To get off the ground, that is ridiculously cheap, considering that like a regular, like a what do you call it? A video card to be able to get the VR off the ground. That's going to be almost $700, $700 right there alone.
I think a low system spec that I saw, and this was months ago, for a VR setup on your PC, like low end was like $1,700, and like a good nice middle ground was like $2,000 to $2,500.
And of course that number is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. But Sony's gonna rush the market here and not make a dime off of any of these VR headsets for a while to be able to ensure the success of the platform. I think that is a bold move on Sony's part, and I think anyone who is investing in VR as a company right now is going to have Sony to thank coming up for the success of this. They really pushed it forward. You're right. I was not someone who was interested at all in any way, shape, or form in VR before this. Maybe in the abstract, but now I'm seriously looking at it as an entertainment platform, and am I impressed.
I have been so hyped for VR ever since Oculus, ever since the first time I saw someone tilt their head and saw the character in the game tilt their head. Like, ever since that moment, I have been psyched for VR, and Sony is just blowing everyone else out of the water.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know. Mr. Cunty McCunface brings up a really good argument. Sony conference was not that good.
Oh, that's actually his name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure is.
See?
Sure is. Let's talk about some of the other titles that we've seen tonight.
Everything.
God of War. That seems to be a reboot that they are setting in Norse mythology. I thought that this was pretty interesting. Again, God of War, not a series that I've ever really been terribly invested in. During the PlayStation 2 era, it was not something that ever crossed my plate.
Slash, right?
Yeah. And then obviously coming late to the PlayStation 3 party, I missed out on that. But I gotta say, I'm really looking at the God of War game as something that's very impressive. I was very impressed by all of the environments and interactions that Kratos had with the kid. Don't be sorry, be better, I think is a great motto. I think that is like if there's like a philosophical underpinning to a game that I can get behind, I think that is really important. And I just like that idea. The whole, don't be sorry, be better. I kind of want to see where that goes. I also want to see if that kid dies. I think you're right that kid is going to end up dying.
He's totally dead.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about
totally dead.
But the thing about God of War though is like that is a huge revenge story. Like God of War, even though I don't know that much about it, I do know from a very basic narrative standpoint that it is a revenge story. And if that's the case, like I think that could be very, very cool. That could be very, very interesting, and it would make perfect sense that kid would die. That would serve as your plot motivation for getting revenge on all of these gods.
Or if at some point Kratos dies and it's now a revenge story from the kid's perspective.
That would also be very interesting.
That's what I'd like to see. Yeah, like a passing of the hammer.
What is this, a Kojima game? There's no passing of the torch between characters.
No, just fish.
Speaking of a Kojima game, let's bounce around. Let's bounce around here in the presentation and just go straight to the thing that matters. Oh my God, Death Stranding.
Oh my God. Is there really
this?
Actually anything to say about that?
I don't know. No, I don't know that I have words. I mean, first of all, it confirms Norman Reedus is, in fact, back and working with Kojima Productions on this, not abandoning their involvement after, that's great, I think.
Yeah, as a big fan of The Walking Dead and, where I think most of us would probably know him for Boondock Saints, all right, Norman Reedus is a terrific person and a great actor, and what I would like to see him do for video games is basically show that voice acting isn't the only voice aren't the only thing that actors have to give. to these pieces of art, right? To finally see a video game ascend to the point where it's going to be comparable to movies, I think between him, Kojima, and I assume Del Toro's probably in on this.
I would think Del Toro is involved. I mean, they did that combined conference together out at GDC, and I hope he is. I mean, there's definitely some
high hopes.
There's definitely
Strange that
some
we didn't see
unique
his name on it though.
And you're right. You didn't see his name on it, and you would think that if he was involved, that you would have.
Right.
You know what I saw during, all over that trailer is symbolism like crazy. You've got the handprints that are going in the sand. You've got the handprints that exist all over Norman Reedus's character.
Handcuffs.
You've got some kind of high-tech digital handcuffs that seem to be attached to Norman Reedus.
The oil on his hands too.
Yeah, there's the oil on his hands. There's the scar on his belly that seems to be an upside-down cross.
Wildlife.
The real, maybe not / imaginary baby that he has and then disappears. That full on umbilical cord attached to. I mean, there is just some very weird stuff going on in that game. And then that final shot that you get with the four, what would seem to be people that are just floating in air.
Hold on, guys, and was also on his neck. He had a necklace that had the same number in shape of like monolith things on the necklace.
Interesting.
Is this what happens when you tell Kojima do whatever you want?
You can do whatever. Yeah, this is Kojima without any reins, and I think that we're going to get something that is very dense, very difficult to understand, very challenging, and just expression. I mean, this may be expressionism in its purest, finest in video games, and could we see something that is, completely, like, conceptually somewhere that we've never seen before?
That's what I'm friggin' hoping for.
It's not a God of War game if a kid don't die.
You asked.
Good point, Escape Death.
You asked at the beginning of this. You expressed that you were worried if that this was a letdown like the other panels have been. It would be like dangerous for E3 as a whole. Would you say that fear is abated a bit?
I definitely think that Sony brought it. Nintendo has the potential to bring it tomorrow. I think that there's some strong showing at E3. I think had Sony not shown up and there was really nothing to chew on and really nothing to talk about, then we would have been in trouble. But I mean, we got almost 24 games here from Sony that were talked about in this conference alone, and I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed.
I was trying to keep a running tally. I believe I have almost $800 now pegged for games in October.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not happy.
And
well, I'm happy, but...
And I got to say, also, the final point on Death Stranding, with all of the symbolism, I get a distinctly Evangelion vibe, especially from that very final scene that had the four monoliths with the ocean of black stuff and the dead fish. Very, very... I mean, there does seem to be a lot of religious imagery that's mashed up here. Just symbolism overall. My attention is going to be full bore on what Kojima is making. Holy shit. So we got a nice demonstration of Days Gone, a post-apocalyptic zombie game, and we didn't see much of the zombies during the trailer. We actually saw much more of the human interactions and a bit more of the narrative-driven portion of the storyline, but then we got to actually see a playthrough there at the end, and just massive waves of hordes of zombies, like unbelievable hordes of zombies.
And what you pointed out about the areas being so dynamic and being able to really work with them that's really cool. And I feel like that's going to be something that takes a lot of getting used to when you're going into the game, because we're all going to be looking like, okay, I need to run across this bridge, but how many people are going to think, okay, turn around and shoot up the bridge now?
Yeah, I am very impressed by that. And It did seem very much at first like what is it?
Left 4 Dead.
Not Left 4 Dead. I'm not thinking Left 4 Dead. Last of Us. It very.
Oh, in the trailer, you mean?
Yeah, it was very similar to Last of Us. A lot of people were saying that it was probably Last of Us 2. I'd say that is a fair comparison to compare it to Last of Us. But I think that we're in for something sort of unique. I mean, they are really pushing the ability to render character models on screen, and I think that that's very impressive. They are pushing the hardware to its limit here.
Well, and that's something we complained about both with PS3 and PS4 was that it seemed like game designers had trouble making games that could make full use of the hardware.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that apparently that has finally caught up.
Yes. We also saw Last Guardian, a game that we saw last year at E3, very much anticipated. We got to see some more environments, some more set pieces from that game. And
cats.
I have to say the environment looks amazing. The world building that they've done here, that Team Eco has done here, is goddamn impressive. I think that was even if it wasn't Last Guardian, I was going to play that no matter what. So,
I mean,
good contribution, guys.
Honestly, that
Just
is
talk
my
over each other, sure.
That is my reaction for a lot of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So many of them IPs that I've never really dipped my toe in very much. Like just like that trailer, it was really cool, and it's enough to make me want to at least try it.
Last Guardian comes out October 25th, 2016.
Of course it does.
Actually get a real release date on that finally. We've been hearing about it for now 3 years. October 25th, 2016 is the official word on Last Guardian. We also saw Horizons. Horizon, excuse me, not Horizons. Horizons was a terrible Atari MMO. Horizon. This a game. It seems to be based around mechanical beasts and hunting them, hacking them, using them to your advantage. And I mean, it seems like a Monster Hunter, except with mechanical dinosaurs. Not a concept that I was into originally, but the more they played the game, the more I found myself warming to the concept.
It's something like you say, last year you weren't super intrigued by it, but this year, as you do get to see them going around and actually like damaging the robot as you attack it and seeing it suffer damage and weaken down, very cool. And also that you can like restrain it to the ground because it jumps around a lot.
I was gonna say more than that. I mean, the amount of tools that she had at her disposal, the staff, the way she hacked things, like you said, tying them down, the bow, the different traps that you could craft on the fly, and then have to like lure the things into, and not just that. Like it goes beyond just like monster hunting, because if you listen to some of the lines she said, how this thing seems ancient and they were called corruptors, alludes to a deeper story where, I mean, obviously this is like a post-apocalyptic thing, but further into the future, where they probably forgot the whole concept of what nature was like without machines in it. And I see that game. That's probably, if I had to, that's on top of my list. I have no words.
I think evolution and technology proliferation and the ability for technology to create itself, all very present themes within that game. And again, I was not into this and suddenly find myself being very into it.
What was very nice about this panel was so many of these original IPs that generated hype on their own. Like it wasn't like the crowd was just going nuts for the sequels this time around. It was the original IPs that the crowd was seemed really into also.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yes, and that was one of the things that I was kind of let down about. Let's take the Bethesda one, for example. Was people were talking about, and we're all hyped about some of the stuff that we knew we were going to get, or some of the stuff that didn't really surprise us, that were already established to other IPs, and then they just rolled right over all of the new stuff. Like Prey, for example. I mean, they had a 30-second trailer and that was it. It was dropped, right? And I kind of felt a little, I don't know, a little bit of resentment that we're like in an age where all we care about is nostalgia and the remakes and like the sequels and the prequels and all this crap. And Sony really flipped that around and delivered to us. I mean, I'm counting on my list right here at least 5 brand new IPs.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And you know, the other thing that really struck me during this during this press conference is Sony said that they weren't going to be showing off the PlayStation Neo, the PlayStation 4 Neo, and they made good on that. They did not talk about the Neo nearly the entire time.
Yeah.
And when you compare that up against Microsoft and how much they presented their new console at their press conference, I mean, it really does. It is impressive how game centric this presentation was.
And it didn't feel like it was like struggling to fill time. It felt like they probably had to cut a lot.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask this to you guys, because they said they weren't going to talk about the Neo at all. Do you think that by virtue that all of those games shown were on the PS4 and not on the Neo?
No.
Because as great as they look now, if they were on the PS4, imagine them on the Neo.
No, I think that if anything, that they were probably showing them off on hardware that is spec'd for the Neo, if I had to guess. But no, I don't think that they would have. See, that's the thing. If they, whatever they were showing them off on, they were making a big deal about it.
Yeah, I feel like if they were showing him on the Neo, they would have mentioned that to make you want the Neo.
Yeah. I feel like you're right. All right, so we already talked about Resident Evil 7, but man, does that look cool. Detroit become human.
That was super, super interesting to me.
Is it really? Now, Chris, why is that? Were you a fan of Heavy Rain or Indigo Prophecy or any of those games?
I've never seen Indigo Prophecy played. I've watched someone play Heavy Rain, and I was actually turned off by Heavy Rain because of like the gameplay and the non-choices that you have in it. But this, like, from what they've shown, it really feels like your choices will affect the story and what options you have available to you and how it actually plays out, unlike Heavy Rain. And
Right.
so to me, like, it's like a choose your own adventure in a video game, but done well.
Right, we only saw like the one instance. Like, I'm assuming that's like the first like situation that you encounter, and we saw 8 different like possible outcomes to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the dynamics looked very, very cool. I mean, just look to Chrono Trigger for like, possible endings and the variables that exist there. I do think that it is a it's a experiment in variables, which I think is very cool.
I'm very curious to see if we as Michiganders will get more out of it having it be set in Detroit.
I think we will probably.
There'll probably be little things that we're just like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think we will probably.
I think the only thing we're going to get out of it is, hey, there's Youmacon.
Renson. Yeah, it's Renson.
All right, let's check in with the one, the only Kooky persona who is live out at the E3 show floor. Kooky, thank you for all of your work reporting from E3. What did you think? What was the most exciting thing that you saw from the show floor?
The most exciting thing I want to say, of course, is the Kojima game. There was so much hype for that, as well as the Spider-Man game. I have no idea the reason why. There's like so many Spider-Man games.
I sort of feel like, honestly, I feel like that hype was like roll off from Kojima. People were still on the Kojima high when they were cheering Spider-Man. They're like, we don't know what we're cheering, but it's something. And, but Kooky, now it had to be just crazy sitting in that room. What was the difference? Now, you were at the Bethesda conference yesterday, able to get into the Sony conference today. What was the difference between the feel in the room between those two conferences? It had to be huge.
Yes, it was definitely a huge difference. Bethesda was very calm and quiet, and it was much smaller and more, I want to say more private, but not really. with Sony, it was like kind of an all-out PlayStation fan experience. Like, they filled the theater from top to bottom, or bottom to top, and it was like I had to go up 3 flights of stairs, I think. I don't know. I was tired by the time I got up there. But
Wow.
and I waited outside for how long? Since 11:30 this morning.
Oh my God.
To get in. Then I was in the standby line, so like it was like 5:30. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I able to get in? So like 10 minutes before, they're like, okay, have your IDs out, and you're going in. I'm like, holy shit, I'm actually going in.
That is so awesome. That is great. Congratulations, Coop.
Yeah. But the whole hype of Sony, everyone loves Sony in here. They absolutely love it. They love, I don't know why, the Spider-Man. They kept dropping trailer after trailer. Like, I could not stop taking notes. I think they had like 16 trailers altogether.
What got the biggest fan reaction? Because there was, I mean, God of War, we heard, got a huge reaction from the crowd.
God of War.
The God of War, Death Stranding didn't get as big of a reaction as God of War. I find that shocking.
No, you're right. God of War did get more reaction, and I don't know why. Like I said, Spider-Man, Crash Bandicoot was another one.
Crash, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I don't understand that either.
It's the nostalgia on both sides of it. I think that, something like Death Stranded is going to be a lot more imaginative, deeper, and bigger than what God of War and obviously Crash Bandicoot is, but I think more people have a connection to Crash Bandicoot and to God of War, and that probably fueled their hype more than anything else.
Absolutely, but I mean, like, I don't know. This is Kojima that we're talking about. I mean, the man is a legend of the video game industry, and
but
I feel
not
like
everybody has that connection. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even have had that reaction to it.
If you
it's
haven't played
because
Metal Gear Solid.
of what you've showed me. Yeah, well, not even that, because obviously I haven't played Metal Gear Solid, but just because of what I've sort of assimilated from, being around you when you talk about Metal Gear and about Kojima, that's the only reason that I have the hype from it. Otherwise, I would just know that, oh, hey, that's that guy that Konami screwed over.
Kooky, go
I
ahead.
don't think that's it, because that trailer you had a lot to take in. Like, you see Norman Reedus, he's naked with no belly button, and there's a child, and all of a sudden it's gone, and then everything's dead around him, and then there's like these 5 figures that's standing in the sky like, what the fuck did I just see? So I think that's why people were kind of like, wow. But when he came out, there's a lot of Kojima chants, and I did hear fuck Konami here and there, but yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. Now, Kooky, one last question before we let you go. All of the music being performed live by the orchestra in-house, that had to have been one of the most amazing performances. We're treated to big music all the time from these things, but you know that that's coming from a trailer. You know that is pristine. It's recorded in a vacuum. All of the inconsistencies or the wrong notes have been taken out digitally, and here we see live performance. And I think that this is so important because Sony highlights something that is really, really important about gaming, that it's not just about the presentation. It is about the presentation, but it's also about the performance. When you get there, when you get to the stage, if all the edges are rounded off, that, yes, you're going to have a safe presentation, but it's also going to be incredibly sanitary at the same time. Sony took a huge risk by having live music performed with all of their trailers. There is so much potential for something to go wrong in something like that during a live show. There's so much technically that could go wrong. Kooky, I got to ask, what was it like to be treated to that kind of performance?
Dude, the production was amazing, like from the very start. It's not just the live music. Yes, the live music did make it more like total immersion, but they also had great production where the lights were going off when lasers were going off, and the screen, there's like a screen behind a screen, so it made it look like the stage looked like it's 3D and interacting with the actual trailer. So that was pretty amazing to me. It was very, very interactive, and it captured every emotion in every trailer of the game.
That is so awesome. Kooky, we are so happy that you were able to get in and experience the Sony press conference. Now, we want to be able to let you go so that you can get over to wherever they were directing you to check out those Sony VRs. Now, we are going to hope that you get a chance to try out the VR, but we're definitely going to be asking you about that next Sunday when we have you on the show to talk about all of your E3 2016 experience. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kooky, for joining us this afternoon and for all of your hard work covering E3 2016.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll be going trying out the VR, and Conan O'Brien is actually on stage right now, so I'll get to see him too.
All right. Well, go enjoy some Conan O'Brien, and maybe he'll do some Clueless Gamer for you before he goes. Thanks, Kooky. Kooky reporting live out from E3 2016, and getting to see the Sony showcase. Kooky, thank you again for that special report. We'll have Kooky bringing you live interviews from E3 2016. We're going to be getting some dev interviews as well as her convention floor experience going out there to help cover E3 2016 for Final Encountercast. Obviously, hugely exciting. So let's talk about that PlayStation VR, guys. October 13th is the launch date, $399 price point. I cannot believe how impressed I am with Sony's VR showing.
Wow.
I was ready to write VR off as in total after the first couple of E3 showcases here.
Yeah, and every single thing that they showed us, Resident Evil, Farpoint, Star Wars, Batman Arkham, even whatever the Final Fantasy 15 VR experience was, it still looked pretty good. And before this, what does Microsoft have? Eagles? I mean, how is that? How is that even? That's not even fair. That's not even fair. Like, as far as I'm concerned, Sony put Microsoft on Nintendo level with this E3.
They really did.
I
they really did box the
though.
shit out of them.
Counterpoint: Microsoft did show off a card game.
I knew that was coming.
Sony, where was the cards?
Thank God. Yeah, exactly. Sony showed off no card game, and I think that speaks volumes to
their integrity. Yeah, it's terrible.
That Star Wars game, when you just look at that, like, do you remember going to the arcade when you were younger and getting in like the Star Wars pod and playing like the Death Star battle?
I do.
It takes me back to that.
Okay, for starters, no, I don't, because that cost 8 fucking credits. I can't afford $2 for one game.
Well,
I definitely played it.
That's right. Microsoft also had the Star Trek simulator, where you and 4 friends could sit on a bridge, fly around space, and then run away.
Shields up! Shields up! God damn it!
And all you have to do is put your finger on a slider to put the shields up. All right, yeah, shields are up, Captain. Okay, great. This gameplay is awesome.
That speaks more towards Star Trek versus Star Wars, to be honest.
And then the Call of Duty, like you guys said though, they need to just drop the Call of Duty part and just call it Infinite Warfare. Oh wow.
Yeah. We also saw a couple of more VR games. By the way, 50 VR games at launch.
That is such we reported on that number about a month ago on FEC, and even then.
The VR presentation overall, super impressive on all levels here, I think. Unfortunately, I did just have another video driver crash, and yeah,
wouldn't be a night without one.
Yeah, it really is a big pain in the ass. So I mean, I've got the stream back up now, but none of your guys' cameras seem to be functioning, and I really don't want to reboot the entire stream for this. So
we're near the end anyway.
Yeah, we are. We're actually getting here down towards the end of talking about the Sony press conference. By the way, if you'd like to make a call to Final Encountercast, we'll take your live calls. Although it doesn't look like we have time for tons of them here. Final Encountercast on Skype 810-207-1764. Man, I gotta tell you, I gotta get a new graphics card. This is really. This is really a pain in the ass.
Look into getting one because it's.
Yeah, this is starting to become obtrusive. But you know, and the last VR title that I really want to mention is the Batman Arkham VR. Didn't see much actual gameplay. Don't know much about it. Just really saw them showing off some of the. Basically the face mask model for Batman, but the fact that we are getting an Arkham VR game, I think that's got to be pretty cool. What do you guys think? Is this going to be, like first person? You take the point of view of Batman and you're beating up baddies? Like
it's got to be that's.
Is there a way to do VR otherwise?
Does VR have to be first person all the time?
It doesn't.
Yeah, I guess it kind of does, doesn't it?
It kind of does, I think. Yeah, like how else would you insert yourself into the action?
I don't think it has to be.
I guess so.
Really? I mean, because if you're not first person, then you're spectating the action, and that doesn't really speak to virtual reality. That speaks to you being a bystander.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. And think of the hashtag wear the cowl, right?
Right, you're wearing the cowl. You have to be Batman. You have to be first person.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. But
the Arkham storyline was great. I'll love to see what they do with it here.
Was the ball dropped too much on what was that? The last Arkham game for the PC port? I feel like they lost a lot of momentum there.
They did, but the story to Arkham Knight was really strong, and once they finally got it sorted out and you were able to play it, it was good. I think the promise of VR and being able to take on the mantle and be Batman will be enough to make people want to do it.
Interesting theory. Let's go to our phone lines. We've got a caller calling in on a landline. Caller, who is this?
This is Bobby Hill Unleashed.
Hey, Bobby, how's it going?
Bobby.
Thanks for calling Final Encountercast. So, do you want to weigh in on this epic Sony press conference here?
Yeah, actually. There was one thing I noticed that was missing, and it made me sad, but I can't say I didn't see it coming. And that was, I think this was the first year that they didn't show anything at all for the Vita.
Oh.
That kind of swept under the proverbial rug, or
haven't they announced that they're done producing for the Vita?
They did. I can't. Yeah, you're right. I can't say I'm surprised. Last year, I don't think they even talked. I don't think they talked much about the Vita last year outside of the remote play function. Did they?
Honestly, I don't believe they did.
Yeah, I think the Vita's done. It is a little bit sad, but when you only sell 7 million units total, it's tough, man. It's tough, especially when the 3DS is something at like 30. I mean, it's just astronomical what the difference is.
The 3DS has such a stranglehold on that market.
They really do. They really,
that's
really
the thing that makes me wonder, too, because with Nintendo's press conference tomorrow, or their Direct, better said, I believe that's primarily focused on Zelda. I mean, I'm sure there might be a few other things, but if they don't have much focus on the 3DS there, do you think handheld gaming in general is just going by the wayside?
I think that you will start seeing less of an emphasis on it because we have phones. The fact that we have mobile screens in front of us all the time, in our pockets all the time, it is really tough, I think, for a game manufacturer, a game company, to keep seeing the viability of strictly mobile titles. I think a piece of hardware that would be able to translate exactly in a 1-to-1 ratio, or maybe with a little bit of compression or down conversion, but still pretty closely be able to replicate the experience that you get on a console with a console game. I think that may be the future of mobile gaming. But that's still a way off. We're making the ability, the processing power, smaller and more compact than ever. It's running, it's running cooler and lighter on systems than ever. And if we can just get more out of a smaller package, I think that's a step in the right direction. But the thing is, and the reason that I say this is that it's got to be worth it to develop that mobile game from a financial standpoint. If you're only developing for Vita hardware and that's all it comes out on, and only 7 million units have ever been moved, then your potential audience is only ever 7 million. You can never go beyond that. And so if you've got a title that's able to move between multiple pieces of hardware, and I think we've seen this with titles that have both a PS4 and a Vita iteration, that those will do better in the marketplace in the long run. And I think it's still going to be a couple of years, but a handheld, a gaming handheld that is able to perfectly replicate a console gaming experience without the need to be connected to Wi-Fi, I think that's going to be the next step for serious console or serious mobile gamers.
When you talk about potential audience, and that you're exactly right. That's the key thing with if you can build for phones, your potential audience, 4 billion people, tons of people,
right?
Lots of people,
honestly,
right. Yeah. Good point. Thanks for giving us a call here today. We appreciate it, Bobby.
Thanks for the excellent coverage of E3, man.
No problem. Well, you guys help make it happen with your support over at patreon.com/Limit Break Radio. And, of course, we support that. So if you've been enjoying coverage of E3 provided by Final and Countercast, of course, hit that follow button. Come back, hang out with the stream all the time. We stream games. We stream, of course, our talk show here, Final and Countercast, every Sunday at 5 here on twitch.tv/Final and Countercast. And if you really, really like the program, you can head on over to patreon.com/Limit Break Radio to be able to help us out and fund further projects here from Final Encountercast. A couple of more things to talk about before we wrap up. If you'd like to call, we'll take one more caller here before we wrap up. Final Encountercast on Skype, 810-207-1764. A couple of more notes. Crash Bandicoot. We're going to be, seems like we're getting a Crash Bandicoot remake with Crash 2 and Crash Warped. They're all remastered versions of this. So I don't know. Are any of you guys Crash?
I've never played a Crash Bandicoot game in my life.
Really? Yeah, I didn't play Crash either.
I did. That was one of the ones that me and my siblings played a lot. I think literally the only thing that is there is nostalgia. I mean, it wasn't like a particularly, oh my god, this game is so amazing type deal. You know, I mean, we're living in the age of reboots and remakes, and that was what I always considered to be, at the time, the Mario of PlayStation. So, I think that it was probably inevitable. But beyond that, I mean, there have been rumors floating around about it already, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not terribly surprised either. Cool announcement, though. I think that's a big nostalgia play. And, Crash has been kind of a missed series. Like, people have been missing that series for a while. It made a disappearance for a while, and it hasn't overstayed its welcome. Clearly, it got a big response in the room.
Yeah.
We also got Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Surprisingly cool.
Looks good.
Surprisingly.
I want a grapple hook in space. That looks really, really fun.
Are you prepared to spend $60 on it?
No, I'm not.
That's sort of what I thought.
$30?
I don't know. I would probably pay $60 for it, especially if I get the Modern Warfare remaster with it too.
Well, that's true, Callie. You said that you were a big fan of the first Modern Warfare. Does that's a pretty good selling point to you?
I think it is a cool selling point, but like if Infinite Warfare didn't look awesome, it wouldn't be enough of one. But Infinite Warfare, that legitimately looked fun and cool. So yeah, I'll try it.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
Ditto.
So we also got Skylanders. I don't know if that's an expansion or what this is. Skylanders. What is it?
It looks
Imaginations.
like a
Something like that.
expansion or like a new game that's still like in the series.
I think it's a new feature because what it reminded me of was making your own Mii or your Mii fighter in Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, because it's yeah.
I don't.
Remind me of like Spore.
I don't really have much of an opinion about it. My cousins play a lot of Skylanders, but it's just not something that.
I mean, it was a clever thing to include Crash Bandicoot with that. It's kind of like what Microsoft did, where they tried to include Conquer with was it Origin, whatever the heck their thing was, where you could create your own game. Except that was garbage, and people were pissed.
Yeah.
So hopefully this works better.
Star Wars Lego. If this is something that you care about, the demo is available tonight, and the full game will be available in 2 weeks. It was very clever. I thought that the trailer was very funny. They did a very good job on the trailer.
I wish I was into Lego games because they look so fun and so funny to play.
They do, don't they? I
Get
mean,
into them.
They really do. I don't know. Like what? Okay, so Chris, you said you wish you could get into them. What prevents you from getting into them?
I don't know. It's just I guess buying it. I mean, I have no real reason that I don't play Lego games besides time and money.
Okay, all right.
Like, there's so many other things I want to play, and I'm not sure if I really want to drop $60 on a Lego game. So I don't know how much I would like it.
All right, Chris, this isn't meant to be a dig. This is a legitimate strategy on getting new games, okay? If you stream and you have Steam and you have a wish list, Ryoku will buy you games.
Are Lego games on
Standby.
Steam?
Huh?
Are the Lego games
I'm
on
sure
Steam?
they are. They've got to be.
I don't know. I don't know if they're consoles. I don't know. I actually don't know.
I'm finding out right now.
Okay, that's
Lego.
We've also.
Yep, they sure are.
fair enough.
Oh, yeah, they are. There's tons of them.
Okay, so we've also got Spider-Man on PS4. What did you guys think of this? I mean, I didn't see Venom in there, but I guess I wasn't paying that close attention, so I don't really care.
I played a Spider-Man game on the PlayStation 1 that was actually a lot of fun. You got to swing around New York, fight along like the rooftops and stuff like that. Remember, there's a lot of really cool collectible type stuff, and I had a lot of fun with it. And since then, there hasn't really been, I feel, any good Spider-Man games. There's nothing that I've seen that's made me want to play it before. This is the first one that might. And I think the reason why it's hard to do is because Spider-Man's very mobile. He's very agile. He should be able to go all over the place. And usually when you get free-roaming games like that, it's Assassin's Creed, right? You run around, you jump on top of stuff. But in order to mimic like his level of agility and acrobats and stuff like that, and just all the amazing feats that he can do, I think it's probably a pretty big, thing to overcome. But from what was in that trailer there, I think there's potential.
I think that there have been enough games that have come out that have gotten grappling hook mechanics correctly that now is the time for a good Spider-Man. And the thing is, I didn't catch this. Is this open world? Because I do think that Spider-Man is a game that would benefit from having the open world format.
They didn't really seem to say whether it was. For me, this game needed to be VR. Like, that would be such a huge selling point for this game.
I think it would give me motion sickness if it were VR, to be honest
I know
with
you say that that's a risk with all VR games, but again, when it comes to Spider-Man, you don't get a character that is more acrobatically inclined than he is. We're not just talking about moving really fast. We're talking about constant flips in every direction.
Yeah.
I don't think people would be able to handle this in VR.
I'm going to agree with you on that. I do think that there's some motion sickness that has to be that's got to be considered there. So
I thought his costume was really ugly. I don't like the white.
They could have chosen.
It was weird, yeah.
which costume was that from a comic or is that new?
That one I can remember.
From a comic, but I don't know what it is right off the top of my head. I'm sure someone in the chat will probably give it to us.
Yeah, that's not one that I know. It's not one that I know. All right, so that covers the full list of games that was shown off by Sony. Guys, overall impressions of the Sony press conference. Let's start with Callie, who is joining us for the first time today.
9 out of 10 for me. We talked about at the beginning, would they have a mic drop moment like they've had in the past years? And to me, this whole conference just seemed to be them dropping the mic. They didn't have one specific moment that stood out above the rest, but it was all such high quality with great showmanship and great presentation. 9 out of 10.
All right. Well, before we finish going around the room, let's go back to our phone lines, take our final call of the night. Caller, welcome to Final Encountercast. Thanks for calling in.
What's going on, Final Encounter? It's Sly. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
Slyaka?
Yes, it is. How you doing?
Oh, that's what's up.
Buddy, thanks for calling Final Encountercast. So I'm assuming that you've been watching all of the Sony E3 2016 hype. We got to have you weigh in, man. What'd you think?
9 out of 10, first of all. For a short hour-long conference, as opposed to all the other ones, there wasn't a lot of fluff. It was pretty much all substance. And with Sony being able to go last on pretty much day zero of the of E3, it kind of gives them like carte blanche to say, well, okay, we don't need to, say this is coming out soon. We don't have a date, but it's coming out soon, like a lot of the other conferences did.
Right.
It was all substance, and it was stuff we were kind of looking forward to. A lot of surprises, a lot of oh shit moments, and 9 out of 10. My only gripes with it, I have two main gripes. One, GT Sport. GT Sport was not present, which I thought was going to be present, which I was hoping for at least a beta, but we didn't get that. And I can live with that. That's fine.
All right.
The other gripe being P5, Persona 5.
See, I knew this was coming. I knew that you were going to cite Persona 5. All we got was one, one brief scene in the hype trailer at the end. That's the only mention that it got for the whole show. Does that have a release date? Does that have a hard date yet set to it?
It has a hard date for JP September 15th and North America February 14th.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Sega and Atlas are doing a behind closed doors thing that will eventually get released out to the public sometime this week. So that's why I can pretty much take that.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. You would think that would have some kind of bigger space in the presentation. Although, I mean, they really did jam this presentation. I'm not sure where they could have fit it. Honestly, I'm not sure what they could have cut in favor of P5. Maybe the Skylanders. Yeah, Skylanders. I was actually just looking at that. Skylanders.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, but you're going back to an old mascot, which is hitting the nostalgia notes of a lot of people who were there. It did.
You're not wrong.
For me, it did for me as well, and I can accept a remaster of all the Crash Bandicoots. I can accept that. Skylanders, that's neither here nor there. It still has a market.
You know what though? At the same time, yeah, you're right. It has a market. We're not it. We are not it. I mean, there's got to be some shit for kids in there too. Right. Yeah, I understand. I definitely understand why they made. And Skylanders is a very strong brand, sells very well. When I worked the brief time that I worked at GameStop, we sold more Skylanders than we did games. It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah. It really is. It's a very strong IP, and I totally understand why it got the love that it did. Okay, so Sly, out of what was shown out there, what made the biggest impression on you?
RE7, of course. And even with my predictions I made, I said one of my predictions was that Sony was going to bring in Resident Evil 7 to go back to the roots of the old relationship that they had originally when Resident Evil came out on PlayStation. That was the old relationship, and I saw them going back to that because Resident Evil went back to its roots. So it'd be natural for Sony to go back to their roots in that relationship.
That's an interesting point, although, the interesting thing about that Resident Evil 7 trailer is that even right up to the end, I had no idea that it was a Resident Evil game. None of the hallmarks that mark what you would normally like. None of the shit. There was no T virus, no Umbrella Corps. Like, there was none of those things that would tip you off. Oh, it's a Resident Evil game. It was so subtle, and by the time that title came in, I'm not a Resident Evil fan, but it left me going, oh my God.
Yes,
wonderful execution there.
Because it mainly leaned on psychological, and that's mainly what we had in the first Resident Evil. It was psychological. It was
tension.
It was all tension.
Yes,
and there was a little bit of action, but it was all tension. And this was pretty much all tension. I kind of thought this was going to be like the Kojima thing. But no, I was completely wrong on that front.
Yeah, and what did you think about the Kojima thing? Of course, Death Stranding, a very bizarre showing from Kojima, but also very exciting. Sly, what were your opinions about Death Stranding?
I'm glad that they kept Norman Reedus on, so that means this is still, in my eyes, this is still the PT game that we're at, the Silent Hills game that we wanted, but hashtag fuck Konami.
Right.
Yeah, it's still the same game in my opinion. It just got a new skin, a new company with Kojima Productions. At first it kind of looked weird to me, but when I saw Norman Reedus' face, I knew that this was the game. He didn't stray off. In my opinion, I don't think he's straying off from the game.
No,
he's straying off from PT.
No, totally amazing offering from Kojima, and makes me a million times more hyped for what he has in the works. I mean, just with the amount of symbolism, the amount of bizarre, bizarre visuals that they have in there, it just it feels it just feels like so punk rock. And
that's what you're getting from it, punk rock.
Yeah, and dangerous, and like using media as a transmission medium for a message and an idea. It's art in its purest form. And I think that's beautiful. Kojima looks at the medium of gaming completely differently from any other creator, and I have such an appreciation for what he's laying down. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Now, to answer your question that you were asking about Spider-Man, I want to say that's Ultimate.
Say that again?
I want to say that's Ultimate Spider-Man.
It is not Ultimate Spider-Man. I actually just looked it up, all the different suits, and I think that's a new design that they're using for the game.
But it does.
It's reminiscent of a few.
I was actually, you know what? I would have guessed Ultimate Spider-Man as well, Sly.
That's the one I'm most familiar with, so I can tell you for sure it's not Ultimate.
All right, fair enough.
So one thing I want to get your take on is what was something that you feel was missed? Because it was short, so there were a few things that got put on the cutting block. What do you think was missed?
I don't know. I as far as missing, I don't know that I am familiar enough of what to expect out of Sony to be able to answer that. I can tell you what was both confusing and disappointing, and it was really the only one, was the Final Fantasy 15 VR component.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was the 1% of fluff, I think, in the whole entire conference.
Which, you know, it's weird because I forget who said it in the chat, but somebody had mentioned in the chat, it's weird that the lull in this presentation is
The misstep.
is FF15. Yeah, and I think that is really true, that out of all of those things that were presented today, FF15 is sort of a footnote there, and granted it's almost out, but I mean, god damn, this is now 2 showings from FF15 at E3, which is arguably the most visible stage in the video game industry, and they have had 2 very questionable showings on that stage on the heels of that FF15 Uncovered event, which I thought left a lot of goodwill for that, and I feel like a lot of that is just being thrown away. It's unfortunate, and I feel like it's very small decisions in that game's design that are really making me go no, and it feels almost unfair, but it also is shit that Square Enix has done so egregiously over and over and over and over in their games that I just don't think I can take it again from them.
Yeah, I agree. I think both showings weren't exactly needed. The game's pretty much, we have a date. Most of us have pre-orders in already. It would have just done fine at a Square Enix event. I think what it was each company, both Sony and Microsoft, just wanted to say, hey, we had this on our platforms, which we already know, which the majority already know. We know what we ordered. But it would have done fine strictly at Square Enix. And hell, we even had an active time report. Most of us know about this.
Right.
So I think both of these steps were unnecessary.
Yeah, I totally agree. Guys, what do you think was missing from the Sony conference?
You all know what I think was missing.
Card games?
Card games.
No, Final Fantasy VII remake information. Duh. Come on.
I think that when you guys say something was missing, you're right, but I think you're looking at it in the wrong way. What was missing from the Sony conference, in my eyes, is what should have been missing from everything else, and that's the fluff crap. You didn't have a different director or a different developer coming out after every single one to tell us crap about the game, or a shitty celebrity coming out with scripted lines in dumbass jokes. What you had was all you needed, and that was right in the very last line that the Sony guy said as he's walking up the stage for the first time, enjoy the show. And it was just trailer after trailer of exactly what we wanted. It showed us gameplay. It showed it in a cinematic, thematic way. You had an amazing orchestra that was playing live every single time, and for most of those things we didn't even realize that they were live demonstrations.
Right.
Like, they weren't just playing the music live, they were playing the music live to a live demonstration.
Right.
That is insane. Okay, the Sony press conference was as close to perfect as you're going to get.
The only thing we were kind of calling for at the end that we were hoping maybe was a price point on the Neo or a bundle.
Yes,
and that's what a lot of people
that would have been nice, but
expecting.
like that's such a little nitpicky thing. I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, a price drop would have really sealed the deal for like Sony killing it this year. I think not coming out with a price drop is forgivable. It's fine. We're only 4 years into the console cycle, even though we are seeing a new console with updated hardware.
And that's not to say that we're not going to get a price point in the days or weeks to come either, a price point drop.
Yeah.
We still do have PlayStation Experience, correct?
Oh, you're right.
We do, yeah.
When is that? I don't even know when that is.
It's normally in the fall, and we do get reveals out of PlayStation Experience. Thus, I'm glad that 7 wasn't there, because we just got shit from Experience. I think that PlayStation Experience is a good thing. Is a good thing to kind of premiere those kinds of things that you're not going to show at E3, that don't have enough time to be presented at E3. where you can present it at PlayStation Experience and it'll be fine.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And a good point, because we did cover PlayStation Experience. Maybe that was the second, third, or fourth episode of Final Encounter Cast. So that's only a couple of months away at this point. I really do. I'm looking forward now to PlayStation Experience to see what else Sony has in store. Is this
in years past? In 2014, it was December 6th through 7th, and last year it was December 5th through 6th. So it might not be till December.
Okay, all right. So another 6 months. I'm curious, guys. In terms of like what what can obviously Sony's press conference made the other ones feel a whole lot lighter.
They were feeling light to begin
with the exception of Ubisoft, because I'll admit Ubisoft had a lot of substance. We only had one day of conferences. That was EA, which was laughable, and Bethesda, which was solid, but not of a lot of substance. And Ubisoft, the thing about Ubisoft is we got dates. That's the thing. Whereas, well, here's some behind the scenes, and here's a bunch of developers talking about what we're doing, and no solid dates, no solid, well, we can get it to you on this date. Nothing like that, whereas Ubisoft said, fuck it, you got dates.
Yeah, but Sony delivered dates as well. And,
that's true.
Ubisoft, it's not surprising that they're able to deliver dates, because it seems like they shell out buggy products left and right. So their release dates don't really mean anything if the games that they put out don't fucking work on the day that they're released. I feel like there's a bit of a trade-off. And I mean, Ubisoft's infamous with that bullshit.
That's true.
So,
but then again, they take risks as well, whereas other companies don't.
Do they? Do they? I mean, I don't feel like.
What new IPs have you seen out of the other companies besides?
Fine. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Sly. Let me get Ubisoft on the phone and Tom Clancy's dead corpse, so that Ubisoft can fuck it a little bit more. I mean, like, when 2/3 of your lineup are strictly Tom Clancy games, I'm not sure that even like does it matter that it's a new IP if it's another Tom Clancy game? Because no, I don't think it does fucking matter. I
don't think that counts.
I don't think it counts. If it's got Tom Clancy's name before it, that's the same IP.
Wait. No, these are the new IPs.
Real
Steep, Grow Up, For Honor. That's it. Eagle Flight. I'll even give you Eagle Flight. So there's 4. And then there's Just Dance, Ghost Recon, Division, South Park, Star Trek, Trials of the Blood Dragon, Assassin's Creed. That was the movie. Watch Dogs 2. That's 7 non-IPs.
Got a point. I mean, yeah.
Ubisoft does take risks. I mean, how many game developers do you see just pushing out Assassin's Creed games every single year? That's a big risk.
They were at 2 a year.
Oh, 2 a year. So that's even bigger. That's impressive.
That's exactly.
It's not fucking mad. I mean, it's not annualized, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, it kind of gets tiring after a point, but. As far as I see, besides Sony, with Sony Ben, which surprised me. I thought we were going to get another Siphon Filter, but that surprised me. Nobody else is taking risks, and we're talking about a third party here. Yeah. That's another thing. We're talking about a third party.
Well, I'll give you this. They put out more than like Bethesda and EA did in terms of
I mean, titles. Again, looking at the list here, Bethesda released like five or six things. Microsoft had about 10, Ubisoft a few more than that, and it was Sony with as I said earlier, like double the other ones. But you're right, no one really took that many risks except maybe Sony.
Yeah.
But even then, like,
A lot of this stuff is very safe, though. You know, you've got Lego Star Wars, you've got Crash Bandicoot, you've got Call of Duty, you've got a new Kojima game, God of War reboot. A lot in here is pretty well treaded territory.
Do you think we'd still be saying this if we would have got a list of these titles before we saw the trailers? Because I would have scoffed at God of War. We've already scoffed several times at Resident Evil. Call of Duty, a few months ago, that was the worst trailer, the worst gaming trailer ever. So I don't think that we can really properly figure out if these are risks or not, because they nailed every single one of them.
I think that's a good point. I mean, at least in presentation, they definitely nailed all of them. That's for sure.
Yeah,
that is for sure.
Right. And then we still have something else to think about tomorrow, which is laughable. Treehouse and Nintendo, who really don't take risks. I'm not even trying to think about it, because it's just going to be primarily Zelda, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Monster Hunter Generation, stuff we know. Shigeru Miyamoto, they rely on their first-party titles. And this is something I've been saying for years. Where the fuck is an F-Zero? This is the fanboy in me. Where the fuck is an F-Zero?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. They seem to trot out their series once every couple of years, and now they've got it on a rotating cycle. Maybe it's F-Zero's time. I doubt it, though. I mean,
I highly doubt it. One thing I'm glad about is that we don't have a quote unquote new Mario.
Don't we? I mean, we don't know yet. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. I mean, we've seen pre-statements from Nintendo, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So, I mean, we'll see what Nintendo is going to bring to the stage tomorrow. I still have hopes of hearing something about the NX, because it still does not make sense to me that we're going to hear about the new Zelda game, which will be on the NX, before we actually hear about the NX. It seems bizarre to me. They have the perfect opportunity here with E3.
I agree. It's a perfect opportunity, but I think that if it's not ready, it's not ready. And I would think that they shouldn't say anything about the NX if they know that it's not ready. And shit, give it another year. We'll probably have a direct next year instead of the Treehouse. I was actually hoping for a direct this year, but thinking about everything that they're doing now, no. A Treehouse is fine, even though it's direct light. I'm fine with it.
I don't know, because everything that they show off is going to have to be shown off either on the Wii U, or it's going to be shown off for the Wii U or the 3DS. And if I'm not hearing about the NX, I don't know why I should be tuning into Microsoft's press conference tomorrow. Honestly, what's the reason? Someone sell me on a reason to tune into Nintendo tomorrow outside of hearing any info about the NX.
Take it away, Chris.
Can anyone sell me on this?
This is the moment you were born for, Chris. Go.
Besides Zelda and Pokemon augmented reality game, I can't sell it.
Yeah, no, I don't.
If you're not tuned into Nintendo's first-party games, then there's no way that we're going to be able to convince you to get hype about Nintendo. I mean, it's
okay. And you don't think that that's a problem? That's an inherent problem.
It's been a problem for years. That's been a problem for years. It's something they've never grown out of.
Yeah, Sly's exactly right. Sly's exactly right.
It's a Nintendo issue that they've never grown out of. We talk about taking risks. They don't take risks.
No, you're right. You're right. They don't. And the thing is that Nintendo seems to think that they can keep sliding on the fact that we're just going to keep pumping out kids, and their games are meant for kids.
Believe me, Nintendo gets away with murder. I think out of all the companies, Nintendo gets away with murder because they rely solely on nostalgia. I've always said this. Nintendo is the company we grew up with, but hasn't grown up with us.
Yes.
They have not grown up.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
That is a great way to put it. Yep. Yeah, but at the same time, like, at what point? Because that's a great point that they didn't grow up with us, because you're going to start hitting diminishing returns on trying to cater to a younger demographic, because kids now are less interested by Pokemon and they're more interested in Yokai Watch. I'm just saying, like, these sorts of things, these sorts of shifts are going to happen, and if Nintendo is not trying to prepare for those, it's really going to be to the detriment of their bottom line.
It wouldn't be to the detriment completely, because they've taken a lot of our money with Wii, with Wii U. They've taken a lot of their money. They've taken losses, but at the same time, they could probably, I wouldn't say go all the way of Sega and just say, fuck it, we'll just do games. They still have a handheld market, which they are like completely ripping up. Like, that is theirs.
But if they don't defend that territory, then
who else is going to take the handheld market? Like, it's not going to be Vita. That shit's dying out. The Vita life is going out. That's been proven by Danganronpa and titles like Gravity Days going to the PS4.
Phones, homie, phones. That's what is going to take over that market. Yep.
You're gonna really tell me that mobile gaming is going to be their way of life? No. They have a handheld to worry about. They have a handheld that's been making money. That's been like their money printer.
No. What I'm saying is that their audience is going to keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, because more and more kids, my cousins, my 8 and 12-year-old cousins respectively, when I watch them navigate Minecraft, it makes me go, oh fuck. They understand a control scheme for video games that I don't understand, and is going to take me time to understand. And that, I think, is the reason that we're going to start slowly and gradually start seeing a shift away from mobile console units like the 3DS and more towards mobile gaming on your phone, as more and more titles that are considered not just mobile games but just games in general migrate to phone hardware. Yeah, of course you're going to see that attitude start to shift. Of course you're going to start seeing people back off from the idea that mobile gaming is somehow in its own separate box from normal gaming. And game companies are really going out of their way to break those walls down. It's going to be a serious hurdle for anyone making games to be able to get over. For your game to be successful, it can't just be seen as a mobile game. If you want it to be successful as a video game in the video game market, have success at places like E3 and inside the video game culture, and not have that stigma of being a quote unquote mobile game follow it, then you're gonna start seeing these AAA developers jump the fence. They're not there yet. I think that we're going to start seeing it very shortly, as soon as phone hardware starts catching up. Yeah, I do fully believe that at some point Nintendo is going to divest what they had, their holdings in the handheld market, and they're going to take their IPs and apply them towards Android and iOS platforms.
Now, when you say that, that's kind of a scary thing, because that's actually regression. When you really think about it, we first started on consoles, early consoles, Nintendo, Sega Genesis, what have you, and then it gradually got up, and then it moved towards handheld gaming, and then we got mobile gaming. Now, when you talk like that, Nintendo's going to slowly devolve out of handheld gaming and go to the mobile market, which is small in comparison to the other two companies, which really don't give a shit about the mobile market. I mean, Microsoft maybe a little, but with their presentation of Minecraft and Minecraft on like iOS tablets and things like that, it's a small market. I don't see it growing anytime soon. But if you're saying it like that, then we're just going to regress right back to strictly consoles. And that really spells doom for Nintendo if they're going to regress out of everything and then eventually regress out of the mobile market. You might as well stick with a damn console.
See, I don't know that it's necessarily regression. I think that it's capitalizing on a potential audience that, if you have the opportunity, go for it. You know what I mean? So I don't know that it's totally regressive, although I do see your point that starting to move away from those hardware and that kind of development doesn't seem to really push gaming forward in any great degree, except for the fact that they're pushing control schemes that are different and new ideas for control of in interacting with the game, that just because we're older or we're of a different generation that we don't automatically get. I don't think that that's necessarily a detriment to gaming overall. I think that we're just going to start seeing more of that shifting towards more devices. And that's really, you got to remember, Nintendo has to manufacture all of those 3DSs, and that comes at a big cost. If there's already devices that can run the software and that can run it competently, and that they exist and that they are proliferated ridiculously, not just through a video game market, but through an overall consumer market for electronics, then that is a greater overall potential for an audience. And, we were talking about the Vita before, where the problem with the Vita was that it only sold 7 million, so your whole audience is only a potential 7 million at maximum. You're probably...
And that was Sony's fault. That was Sony's fault altogether, because price...
Yeah, no, it was Sony's fault, because what they did, and I don't think that they even realized this, is that the cost for developing a Vita game was so astronomical compared to other mobile games that it didn't make sense. You needed more man hours, you needed more assets, you needed more effort and time and development for an outcome that guaranteed you less of a profit. So for mobile games.
I wouldn't say that completely, because Nintendo followed the same formula, and the difference between Nintendo and Sony in that regard is software. When you really think about Vita, besides the hardcore Sony fans who really pick up, Vita and digital titles for Vita, what were the only Vita titles that you really considered? Persona 4 Golden, Danganronpa 1 and 2. I can't think of any others. Whereas you have an entire library at your disposal with 3DS, and you have a lot of people going to 3DS for their mobile titles, which some of them are even on Vita's platform as well.
Right, but you can't even begin to compare the quality of games between 3DS and the Vita. The 3DS graphics are 2 generation steps down from what the Vita can produce, and
yet people are still buying them.
Right, and the exact reason is, yes, you're right, that there was never that killer title that really moved Vitas, but at the same time, it's a catch-22, because no developer wanted to step to the plate to be able to make that, because it didn't make any financial sense, right? If you didn't have a guaranteed home run that would absolutely move units 100%, your maximum potential audience is only 7 million. And if you have to dump the amount of assets and man hours into a game that is the same amount of assets and the same amount of man hours that you would pump into your average AAA PlayStation 3 game, it makes way more development sense to cut that team in half, cut the man hours in half, cut the amount of development assets in half, and throw it onto a less powerful piece of hardware so that it has more of a potential to sell. Even if it's a dog, you can sell 7 million. That's a quarter of what the potential audience is there. It just makes way more financial sense to develop for the 3DS than it did for the Vita. You had a bunch of initial developers initially developing for the Vita with the idea that this is going to sell a whole bunch, and when it didn't, people just abandoned it in droves. Not players, but developers. And because you didn't have that good developer push, you never sold units. It was a total catch-22. And either Sony's next handheld handheld either has to address that by easing the requirements on the developers and saying, look, all you've got to do is down convert it. All you got to do is have, low resolution textures, and then you can just port whatever you make to this hardware, and you just have a potential to sell it between both. Then that has there's a market force there that's at work, right? But unless you have that, you've got to go with the lower tuned hardware to make development sense, or else you're just pumping absolutely ridiculous amounts of money into a system that you're not seeing enough of a return on.
But then again, when you say the mobile market, it's a catch-22 there, because it's going to take years for the hardware to develop to where it would be remotely near what 3DS would be. And you're not going to pump, like you said, you're not going to pump a lot of man hours into that. And when you think about it, when you think about the consumer standpoint, how many people are going to really spend hours on their phone playing a game when they have a console?
You would be really surprised. I think you would be shocked how willing people are to play on their phone. And I also want to challenge the idea that hardware is not caught up to the point where phones can replicate 3DS graphics. I've seen multiple titles where I'm like, oh, this could run on a 3DS. And I'm talking like titles that had come out like 2 or 3 years ago for the last generation of phone hardware. So I think that stuff continues to improve, that you are going to see people that maybe even took a game that was originally designed for the 3DS and just say, oh, well, we can just port this to phones and watch it sell gangbusters there. Just because nobody's proved the mobile market on mobile devices, on mobile hardware, does not mean the potential isn't there. The potential absolutely is there. The stigma has to go away, and that's going to take... that's going to take some effort on the part of game developers, and it's going to take them wanting to meaningfully step into that space and go, no, guys, you need to trust us. This is going to be okay. Nobody's done that. Not a Microsoft, not a Sony, not an Ubisoft, not an EA. Nobody has stepped up to that plate to say, to go, look, guys, gaming on a mobile platform is going to be okay. I think that's going to be coming very, very shortly, though.
We'll see.
Anyway, Sly, thank you so much for that call, man. We really appreciate it. Interesting discussion with you as always. Huge shout out to Sly. Check him out, twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox. Sly, are you planning anything big in the wake of E3 this week? Got any streaming specials that you're going to be doing?
Well, I usually do my E3 stuff. So tomorrow will be Nintendo, and then maybe a few announcements during the day. Might do the stream the Square events that happen, but that's few and far in between. The main things will be probably Wednesday, which is the active time report for 15, and the live of course.
Yep. We've got the live letter, of course, to look forward to. Sly, thanks so much, man, for calling in. We really appreciate it. Again, check out Sly, twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox, and also make sure that you check out State of the Realm for FF14 news and discussion. Sly, thanks so much for calling in, homie.
Thank you for the discussion. Thank y'all.
All right, man. Have a good one. I think that's going to do it, guys. We've been here for a while discussing this Sony press conference. Again, impressive showing from Sony. Guys, I would call myself a Sony gamer going into this. I don't have a whole lot of brand loyalty towards anything, but I do buy Sony products, and I do enjoy them, and I like them quite a bit. But I got to say, on the other side of this, man, Sony has really turned me into someone who is expecting a lot out of their company within the next year.
Yeah. Originally, my first, gaming console that was mine was a PlayStation. And then I bought a PlayStation 2 with my own money. I then ended up, becoming an Xbox with the 360 because I got it for free, and I was happy with Xbox, like no big deal. When this current generation of consoles came out, I didn't really have any affinity for either one. People have been asking me, which one are you going to get first? Blah, 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 blah. I have a PC now, so I would really count myself out of the whole, console culture. But with just one, slightly over an hour-long conference, Sony was able to turn me into a Sony gamer now. I need a PlayStation 4, and sold me on VR after being completely checked out of that particular subset of culture.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And, the really funny and ironic thing is that if there were a game that I wanted to get on the Xbox One, I could just get that on Windows 10. So I'm like even more checked out of Microsoft now.
Someone shared an image on my Facebook during this conference that showed a picture of the Xbox One Slim, and it said, "Here's our new Xbox One Slim. Let us tell you all the reasons not to buy it."
It really did seem like that, right? Like they just rattled off a ton of reasons why you don't need this.
Pretty much.
Oh. Amazing. Callie, of course, you were not here for the majority of today's coverage. Getting caught up with E3 2016 here towards the end. Where are you on the hype thermometer, my friend?
I'm way up there, but purely on Sony. I said it earlier. VR has been something I've kind of pinned all my future gaming hopes on, and I'm super happy to see what it's looking like. I'm really excited for it.
Absolutely. And finally, Chris, we are looking at Nintendo tomorrow. We know how much of a Nintendo fanboy you are. What do you expect out of Nintendo tomorrow morning?
Well, it's kind of just like what Sly said. I'm expecting some kind of Zelda. I'm expecting some Pokemon Sun and Moon news. But I'm also expecting something under the radar. Something like, not necessarily Kid Icarus, but something along those kinds of like IP reviving. We've already had a Star Fox recently that wasn't very good. We've had Kid Icarus and Fire Emblem in the last couple years or so. So maybe it's like time for another Metroid to pop up. I don't know.
How about an Earthbound game?
That's never gonna happen.
Oh yeah, no, there's no way. Did you just say that? Did you get any amount of expectation up for an Earthbound game? Not gonna happen. Happen.
They actually just released the new F-Zero and Earthbound game just a while back. It was called Super Smash Brothers 4 Wii U. It was really good.
Lol. So all right. I think that is. I think we should call it, right. I think we should call it.
Yeah. This has almost been an LBR episode.
I know, right? The guys, this has been a lot of fun. It's really fun covering E3. I got to tell you, been the first time that we've ever tried to do this, and I'm having a blast. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us here at Final Encountercast. We know that you have a ton of options for where you can spend time with your E3 coverage. There is no shortage of channels that are rebroadcasting, talking, and analyzing all kinds of E3 2016 coverage. Guys, I cannot thank you enough for choosing to spend your time with Final Encountercast. It means so much to us. It's been a year since we started the show, and to know that we have 60 people that want to hear what we have to say about E3 is really cool. That's really special to us. So thank you guys so much. If you've been enjoying the coverage, hit that follow button and join us all the time as we stream here on Final Encountercast. Join us on Sundays at 5 for the official show of Final Encountercast. We are a call-in talk show. You can call in anytime to the show. Final Encountercast on Skype, 810-207-1764. Make sure to join us tomorrow starting at noon for the Nintendo press conference. That's noon Eastern here on twitch.tv/Final Encountercast. I'd like to thank Callie as well as Robbie and Chris. Robbie and Chris have been hanging out with me all freaking day today. Been breaking down the best E3 2016, and also a huge shout out and thank you to Kooky Persona waiting in that epic overflow line for the Sony press conference, getting in and giving us the scoop from the E3 show floor. Guys, I cannot wait to hear her experiences from E3, and you won't want to miss it either. That's going to be next weekend. That is next Sunday, the 19th, starting at 5 p.m. here on twitch.tv/Final Encountercast. My name's Nate Bender. Thanks for joining us for coverage of E3 2016. Have a great night, guys.